First appearances are given to the title of the collectibles that are, well, their first appearance. So today we're going to figure out if you should be paying more attention to them, what significance they have, and more that you need to understand. Let's get started. Welcome in everyone, my name is Andy and I appreciate taking some time out of your day to come and watch this video on the channel. Just before we get started, if you are enjoying the content and you want to learn more about the crypto, finance and NFT space, then I'd love for you to join this journey by subscribing to the channel. First appearances on Veve are incredibly important and something that we have to be paying more attention to. There's a lot more users on the platform now, meaning there's going to be more and more additions that are added to everything that's going on. So what actually is first appearances? Well, just like it says, and to really break it down, first appearances is the first ever appearance of this digital collectible made in a digital format. Veve have actually mentioned this previously. It was in some of the YouTube videos that I have watched within their Discord that this is the first time they've ever been digitally made in the NFT space for this specific collectible. First ever Batman with Todd McFarlane is the first ever Batman digitally made for not only Veve but everywhere else. This adds a lot of significance to what the first appearances actually are. We have over 2 million downloads, 1.1 million active users, and I only see that user base growing over the next coming years and decades that we are working on Veve and building them up. But the fact of the matter is there's only so many first appearances you can get, meaning that number of new first appearances is going to dwindle away, especially for the biggest superheroes, the biggest brands and everything else that are coming to Veve over the long run. This is the things like Todd McFarlane's Batman, the first appearance of Superman, Batgirl, Catwoman, Spider-Man, stamps, and so much more. These are all the first appearances of these things and will no longer ever have a first appearance of them going forward. Now there's a thing called the serial position effect, and it basically uses primary effect and recency effect. What this actually means is when you're reading from a list, you often remember what's first and what's last. First because it's enveloped into your long-term memory, and last because it's in your short-term memory. And just like anything in the physical collectible world or the digital collectible world, most people remember the first and most recent thing that have went on. So if you ask someone what's the first Batman, it's Todd McFarlane right away. If you ask someone what's the first digital stamps made, then you know it's from USPS made on Veve. We know what the firsts are and are able to retain that in our long-term memory, meaning whenever we speak about something being the first, we know what it is. I can show you this from real-world examples as well, with the first edition Shadowless Charizard going for 399,000 in a sale, and also with the first appearance of X-Men, 492,000, Amazing Fantasy 15, 1.1 million, first appearance of Iron Man, 375,000, Hulk's first appearance, 375,000, and I could go on forever with this sort of stuff. I want this to be an understanding as to why first appearance is so important. Right now, Todd McFarlane has 7,500 editions and sits at around 2.3k gems. 5 or 6 months ago, Todd McFarlane was sitting at around 300 to 400 gems. Something that we would have never have thought would reached that quickly, that fast. And with the ever-growing platform and now 1.1 million active users, 7,500 Todd McFarlanes and the first ever appearance of Batman on Veve and in the digital space doesn't really seem like that much anymore. We've already seen a rise in the additions that are now given to specific things. Granted, some things are definitely still keeping their low additions, which I like for the scarcity side of things, but if we reach 5 and 10 million people on the platform, Veve are most likely not going to have a choice but to put the number of additions up so that it's satisfying the same amount of percentage that are on the app right now. Meaning if 1% of all the active users are getting this drop with 1.1 million people on the platform, they're more likely going to have to match that when we get to 5 and 10 million, up in the number of additions and also lowering the amount of first appearances that we're ever going to see for certain brands. This means that over time, the 8,888 Supermen on the platform are going to seem like absolutely nothing compared to potentially 20,000 common editions of the next first appearance. This doesn't mean that the first appearance value of something in the future is going to dwindle purely because the mints are higher, because if we do have more people on the platform, then it's still going to match up pretty evenly. But the fact of the matter is, when we get to that stage, 7,500 being the first ever Batman is just insane, and that sort of pricing is not really going to be met ever again. With the comparison that we made when it came to the comic books, every single one that I'd listed was the first appearance of that character. It's not to say that other comic books have not got significant value, as we've talked about the Amazing Spider-Man, which is actually one of his first appearances, still sold for around $262,000. But That's nowhere near close to Amazing Fantasy 15, Peter Parker's actual first appearance at $1.1 million. There's a big jump in significance when it comes to something that is first appearance, and when it appears for the first time, that's what people remember. Now, with the likes of Dad Bod Batman, which was released in Season 5, it doesn't mean that that's not going to hold significant value in the future. It's an ultra rare, it's got a little bit of a meme behind it, which people did meme on back in the day, and it's also a part of Batman overall, so it's still going to have popularity. But when you look at the first of something, it's always going to be the first appearance that will come first editions that will most likely come second, and then everything else that will come third. The comparison that I have found with first appearance and first editions, from what I could come up with anyway, is that the first appearance is literally the first appearance of something ever, and first edition is within that set can be its first edition of said thing. So the likes of Riso from Season 1 Batman is first edition, but not first appearance of Batman. It's the same if we look at Joe and Becky from that series, both are first editions, but not actually first appearances of the character itself in digital format. If you're here for the long run and you're thinking how you can play your cards in the best way possible, first appearances are most likely the best route to go. When it comes to the comic books, we can already see that Marvel's comic took a massive leap last night, being the first ever Marvel comic book that was released. It surpassed the 100 gem mark that it's been sitting at for quite a while, and we can also see the likes of Fantastic Four rising as well, with being the first appearance of a Fantastic Four comic book. Now again, this isn't the first appearance we've had of Fantastic Four characters, but in regards to the comic book, it is the same. Those ones are holding the most value, not only because they have significant value in the real world, but also because it's the first ever appearance of that comic book in the NFT space. People who come onto the app, especially with a lot of money, are going to be looking for something significant. They're there to build a legacy, they're there to buy the best of what they possibly can, and the most important questions that are going to be asked are, what was first and what's the best? Things that are first are the most important to the majority of us. We want to have the best of the best. And when you think of what was the first ever minted Batman, the first ever minted Superman, the first ever minted Supergirl, USBS stamps, Givenchy Pride posters, you're going to want to have the first of everything. That's what the biggest people are going to want. It's not to say that they're not going to enjoy the other things and some other things will grab their attention, but if they're there for the best of the best, they're going to find pretty quickly that the first appearances of the most important and significant drops in this whole space are what they're going to need to pick up. A few months back, when people were guessing that Todd and all that could be at around 2,000, it's now sitting above that. And with it not only grown significantly over the long run, us moving to the Ethereum chain, with also all the other changes that are coming, Todd McFarlane could easily reach upwards of 10k in the next year or so, if the cards play right. It's not to say that the others couldn't either. Some of the first appearances, especially if people come in and just start to sweep everything, a lot could be out of your reach pretty quickly, because it won't actually take that much to do so. When you look at something on OpenSea where it comes to the Bored Ape Yacht Club, people are having to spend a couple $100,000 to just sweep the floor. But when it comes to something like Veve at the moment, you only need to spend 2.4k compared to 180k for a Bored Ape with just one, meaning you could buy a hell of a lot more Todd McFarlane Batmans than you could for one Bored Ape Yacht Club. Again, there's two quite big differences when it comes to this sort of stuff, but I just want you to give it an understanding of that if people are willing to pay that sort of money for access to the Bored Ape Yacht Club, there is going to be specific groups made for people who hold the first ever collectible on Veve, as well as it being a Batman and by Todd McFarlane. There's a whole lot of significance in holding the first appearance of things, and we've seen that not only play out in the physical world, but starting to play out in the digital world when we look at things like the Bored Ape Yacht Club and the CryptoPunks, as well as some of even the Ether rocks that were sold for millions of dollars just a few months ago. First appearances are important, and I think if you're trying to plan this game for the long run and you're here for 5 to 10 years, start looking at what you can pick up being an FA, something that is going to hold significant value, because that's what the big people will be after. And if you're able to hold them and you're able to stay convicted in your plan, knowing why you're doing so, you're most likely going to reap the rewards for doing so. First appearances are definitely not the be all end all. Some other ones may even overtake the first appearance, but the first appearance in itself is most likely going to hold the most significant value purely based on that fact alone. There could be spectacular ones made of another Batman in the future, and I'm guessing there will be, but it will never beat the Todd McFarlane Batman, because that is the first appearance and nothing can take away from it. It may also not be the one that sells for the most as of right now. When we go further and further down the line, this may become more significant. It's not uncommon for the common drop to actually overtake any of the other drops within a series. We've seen that with the Labicon already, and we've also seen that with Givenchy Pride overtaking both of the ultra rares. It is possible, and it's not something that we've not seen. So be sure to pay more attention to what the FAs are when they're coming out, and if you can actually snag some of them up on a good deal. What's your thoughts on the first appearances on Veve and in the digital space as a whole? Do you feel they hold the significance that I've been talking about today, or do you think it's a whole load of crap? Let me know down in the comments. I know the video on the screen right now will be something you'll love to watch. Have a fantastic day.